Currently, it is 60 degrees here on the campus of Florissant Valley Community College. I'm Joe with your noon news update. The St. Louis Circuit Attorney's Office is charging a man for allegedly sexually assaulting a woman in an abandoned building. Police say Daniel Basurto choked and assaulted the woman in a building on South 2nd Street near the entrance ramp to US 40 last Friday afternoon. The woman was able to escape with the help of a friend who was also later assaulted. Basurto is being held on $100,000 bond on charges of sodomy and assault. St. Louis police are asking for the public's help solving a cold case. They say 32-year-old Nathan Dakeman and his 21-year-old girlfriend Taylor Lane were found shot in their home on Pennsylvania near Dakota in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood. Their dog was also shot but survived the October of 2016 shooting. There's a $5,000 reward in the case. A Maplewood pie shop is closed for cleaning today following an unusual vandalism incident. Police say Michael Brooker broke into Pie O My on Sutton Boulevard yesterday morning. He apparently got undressed while smearing jam and other ingredients around the store. Police say he was wearing boxers when they found him on the street. And the Cardinals are tied atop the NL Central standings with the Brewers. St. Louis is technically percentage points ahead of Milwaukee with a 13-8 record. The Brewers are 14-9. The Cardinals are coming off a 3-game sweep of the last place Reds, while the Brewers are riding a 6-game winning streak. In campus news, we have a walk... Oh, no we don't. Never mind. Moving on, here's the... I thought I had some new news. That was actually old. Moving on, here's the weather. So, today, it is cloudy with a high of 71 and a low of 49. Wednesday, it will be mostly cloudy, high of 66, low of 44. Thursday, sunny, high of 65, low of 46. Friday, got some showers in the morning, high of 66, low of 46. And Saturday, it will be sunny with a high of 68 and a low of 46. Sunday, though, it's going to jump up to a sunny 71 with a low of 52, and then 77 on Monday and Tuesday, and pretty much we got 60s and 70s now. Congratulations, we finally made it to spring, or possibly summer. We might have skipped spring. No, 60s spring. Okay, so we found spring. Glad that happened. Anyway, currently it is 60 degrees here at KCFV. I'm Jel, and this has been your noon news update. But please, stay tuned to 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, because after just a short break, we will be back with GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. But until then, here's Back Pay by Night Owl. Enjoy, and please stay tuned. That was Back Pay by Night Owl here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jel, and welcome to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. I've been so used to saying Wednesday. Anyway, we like to kick the show off with the new game releases for this week, what's coming out next week, and what anime are in theaters. Except I realized I forgot to put my laptop over here so I can pull up the anime. So we will take a break before I tell you what anime are coming to theaters. But we've actually got a lot, so please stay tuned for that. But, starting things off this week on PlayStation 4, we got Cluster Tumble, Code 51 Mecha Arena, which is a PlayStation VR mech game. Unfortunately, it has movement blinders. They promise that they will patch them out, but it's starting to sound like that might take 2 months. I'm not sure where that number came from. So I'll pick your game up in 2 months then. Dead Secret, Devious Dungeon, Emily Wants to Play 2, Galgun 2, which you probably have to special order if you're not buying it digitally, Jolt Family Robot Racer, Just in Time Incorporated, which is another PlayStation VR game that it's actually a crazy release week for PlayStation VR. This one is I would describe it as kind of a super hot knockoff. You move in slow motion and prevent people from getting assassinated, and they all look like Lego people. Moving on, Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, Marvel Avengers Infinity War. So I guess that's an update. Pick-a-Pix Color. Rick and Morty Virtual Reality Collector's Edition, which that was released. The regular edition was released a little bit earlier, like digitally, and now we've got that. Again, PlayStation VR game. Also, The Swords of Ditto and To Leave, and then in 2 days, Dream Angling, another PlayStation VR game. It's a weird fishing game where you fish inside of dreams. Ugh. And MLB Home Run Derby VR, again, PlayStation VR. And Survive Mr. Cube. And then, on Xbox One, we've got Vikings Treasure, Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, Marvel Avengers Infinity War. The Invisible Hours, now that the VR has been removed from that, it's not really a game so much as it is a very interesting interactive movie where a murder takes place and you can walk freely around watching how events play out as people go to different areas of the house and stuff. It's actually pretty neat. Moving on, Emily Wants to Play 2, Runestone Keeper, Agatha Knife, Drago Dino, and Corgan have come out on Xbox One or are coming out this week. On Nintendo Switch, we've got Flint Hook, Mercenary Kings Reloaded Edition, Darkest Dungeon Ancestral Edition, Firefighters The Simulation and Firefighters Airport Fire Department, Galgun 2, Hello Kitty Cruisers, one of the rarest Nintendo Wii U games is now coming to Switch, as if anyone cared. Apparently it's by Bergsala Lightweight, so it might actually be okay. I don't know. Anyway, Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, Marvel Avengers Infinity War, South Park The Fractured Butthole with 3 different DLCs, Bring the Crunch, Danger Deck, and From Dusk Till Casa Bonita, as well as Where Are My Friends, and on the 26th we've got A Robot Named Fight, ACA Neo Geo Ghost Pilots, Agatha Knife, Another Lost Phone, Laura's Story, Goitia, Korg Gadget for Nintendo Switch, Late Shift, Lightfall, Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm Trilogy, Sky Rogue, Sky Piece, Sparkle Zero, and, let's see, 12 Orbits, Aquamoto Racing Utopia, Bouncy Bob, Drago Dino, Jotun Valhalla Edition, Save the Ninja Clan, and Snowmoto Racing Freedom, and Super Sario Fly. Cripes, what a game dump. That's a lot. I kind of need to look up a few of these. What Aquamoto and Snowmoto are actually looking like. I'm kind of curious about them. And PlayStation Vita gets Cosmic Star Heroine, Devious Dungeon, and Pick-a-Pix Color. Nothing on 3DS. Moving on to next week. Next week, the PlayStation 4 gets Battlezone Gold Edition, which also is now playable outside of VR. And you can play with people in VR. And that was actually the game that sold me on my PlayStation VR, because I like arcade tank games. Battlezone's good. I usually buy things for Battlezone. Guns of Icarus Alliance, Killing Floor Incursion, Super Mega Baseball 2, and City of Brass. Yeah, weirdly, not a lot of games listed for next week, but a ton for the week after next. Moving on, Xbox One is also getting Battlezone Gold Edition, along with Minecraft Super Plus Pack, Super Mega Baseball 2, City of Brass. Moving on, Nintendo Switch next week is getting Don't Die, Mr. Robot, Nihilumbra, and Perfect Angle, along with Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which is a fantastic platformer that was on Wii U, and now has a new funky mode. And, yeah, that about covers it. Those would be all of the game releases for this week and next week. Not a lot of people listing things for next week. It's all week after next. I don't know why. And it'll probably fill up as we get closer to, Tuesday next week. But either way, that concludes that. I would tell you what anime are in theaters, and we've got a ton, but I forgot to bring out my laptop. So let me boot that sucker up, and while we are waiting for that, please enjoy Neutron Dawn by Proletariat Punch here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Well, that was Neutron Dawn by Proletariat Punch here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell. This is GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. So, as I said, I forgot to turn on my laptop. The laptop is on now, and now I can tell you what anime are in theaters, which is good, because May is a busy month for anime. First of all, this month, on the 25th, will be The Cat Returns. So tomorrow, if you want to see The Cat Returns, which is a Studio Ghibli film, it will be in theaters, dubbed probably around 7 o'clock. That's when it tends to be. So look out for that if you're interested. Fun movie. Moving on, though, May 2nd, so not a long wait. May 2nd, 5th, and 6th is Bungo Stray Dogs Dead Apple. Again, that will be May 2nd, 5th, and 6th. It looks like it will be subtitled for that. Moving on, though, May 11th is probably the most eyebrow-raising one. A movie called Lou Over the Wall, which reminds me a lot of Ponyo, because it's another, like, Little Mermaid-inspired anime with a really weird-looking mermaid. She has, like, a frog face. But it's... The shtick this time is, okay, fine, we got the dejected kid living by the seaside and it attracts a mermaid, but he's, like, in an indie rock band, and that's what attracts the mermaid, and she starts singing in the band, and then a bunch of crazy things happen because her singing causes people to spontaneously dance whether they want to or not. And I will say, I was watching the trailer on mute, because I didn't want it, like, going over the radio or doing anything weird. And I was like, okay, this just looks like a Ponyo knockoff, this just looks like a Ponyo knockoff. And then, towards the end of the trailer, I was like, okay, what? It gets really surreal and weird, and now I want to see it. It will apparently be both dubbed and subbed, and it will be in theaters May 11th. I need to look up... I'd like to look up more about it, but we don't really have showtimes listed. But believe it or not, it will be at... It'll be at 4 different theaters in Missouri, which include... Like, only 4. It include the Tivoli and the Mills. So apparently that's the thing now, is the Mills Theater is actually kind of becoming the Tivoli of Hazelwood? I don't know. Lastly, though, at the end of the month will be Porco Rosso, May 20th, 21st, and 23rd. So that is certainly something to look forward to. Another Studio Ghibli film. That one's about a guy who got turned into a pig and he flies a plane. It was also just a nice movie. But yeah, Lou Over the Wall, I think, is going to be the big eyebrow raiser, and yeah, I want to see that. I need to set aside something to see that in theaters. Ooh, anyway, that concludes the Anime in Theaters report. Let's move on to a little bit of video game news before I hit you back to the music. Let's see. Let's just go with, man, I should really organize this by how many characters are coming out for fighting games. Because, first of all, for Dragon Ball FighterZ, Fused Zamasu is next. Blue Gogeta, I think it's Gogeta. You'll have to excuse me if I get my Gogetas and Vegetos confused. But whichever one was actually in Super is likely next. We don't have confirmation, but it is looking like the leak list that came out a while back is true, which is very disappointing, because that means we might have a few too many Gokus, if you ask me. But yes, Fused Zamasu is next for Dragon Ball FighterZ. Meanwhile, in Final Fantasy Dissidia NT, Vayne Solidor of Final Fantasy XII will be coming April 26th. And as much as I love Final Fantasy XII, no one cares about Vayne. He wasn't really a very good... He wasn't... He's kind of too complex to just put as a villain, like, full stop. Which is why he was kind of a terrible end boss. It's one of the weaker points of the game. I love Final Fantasy XII, though, and if you haven't given it a chance, it's still something I say deserves a second chance. It's on PC now, so you have even less of an excuse. Let's see. Anything else? Okay, nothing else fighting game related, except Puzzle Fighter Mobile will be shutting down July 31st. That's not its actual name, it's just called Puzzle Fighter. But the mobile version of Puzzle Fighter is shutting down July 31st. Well, that was quick. I kinda hope maybe they, use the assets to make a console port, because Puzzle Fighter's a good game, but I wasn't playing the mobile one. My gaming tablet is a disaster. Let's just put it like that. There's no such thing, if you ask me, as a gaming tablet. And people say, no, I game on my tablet all the time. No. I mean, like, if you play something that's actually, like, system-intensive and pushes polygons and stuff, and that's, like, your main purpose for your tablet, yeah, it doesn't quite work. Didn't for me, at least. My tablet is a joke in and of itself. Yeah, so that should be good for now. I will kick you back to the music, and when we get back, it looks like spontaneous sidekick Sully is here, so I will call him in, and we will hit up way more news once he gets in here. But until then, here is Pour by Sa Leon, here on 89.5 FM, KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening. Hello, and welcome back to GameBabble Live here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. That was From the Kicks to the Cribs by Hyson Dominique here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. I'm your host, Jell, and I am joined by spontaneous sidekick Sully.
I'm always here eventually. You guys know that.
You never know. Anyway, time for more video game news because, oh boy, is there a lot of it. Let's start with, like, the most breaking of breaking news. The Nintendo Switch has officially been hella hacked.
Yeah, I saw a post about that.
Yep, they are running Linux on it. It is a hardware-level exploit, meaning that Nintendo can try to mitigate it with the software, but for the most part, they can't stop it, and they're going to need to pretty much completely overhaul their hardware for it, which it looks like there might be some hints that they might use. It's processor level. It has to do with the NVIDIA Tegra X1 chip, which also a lot of Android phones use, so those are hackable as well. And it was...
well, but people have been running Linux on Android phones for years.
True, and that's, of course, why they were able to figure it out relatively quickly for the Nintendo Switch. Thankfully... The hackers that reported this were a group of attempting to be ethical hackers. So they've alerted everyone involved, and they're like, yeah, there's a problem. It's hardware level. Lots of people have found it. Here's the deal. You might want to get this fixed. So, interesting thing there. Moving on to... let's talk about another piece of Nintendo hardware. The Nintendo Labo replacement part PDFs are up on the Japanese site. I don't know if they have them on the U.S. site, but yes, this confirms if you break your cardboard boxes for Nintendo Labo, you can print out some stencils and make new parts, or you can order them off the website. If you need expensive cardboard, that is.
You know, you gotta get that quality cardboard. If you're not having quality cardboard, you're just not having fun, I guess.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I'm kind of intrigued. I have not seen enough of Labo in action. I really need to look it up because I'm hearing about people building the Labo remote control robots and duct taping knives to them and fighting them. I think that's playing the game correctly.
That's what I need in my life.
Yeah, so I need to look that up. Apparently, as good as the new God of War is doing, I'm hearing some reports that Nintendo Labo might be doing better. I need to double check this. That's a little bit brain shattering, but people are apparently loving their Labos.
They love that cardboard.
Gotta love that cardboard. Speaking of the Switch, though, Platinum Games is looking to bring Wonderful 101 to the Switch, which is fantastic because, well, Wonderful 101 was a very Wii U-centric game, but I do believe it can run just fine on the Switch. It's a Platinum game that a lot of people haven't really sunk their teeth into. It's sort of you could call it the spiritual successor to Beautiful Joe. It's very weird, and I do hope that they get it on Switch because, screw it, why not? No one bought a Wii U except me.
Hey, I have one. Don't just the Wii U, my dude.
I'm glad. I am glad you have a Wii U because the Wii U was such an adventure. I enjoyed it. I actually like my Wii U more than my Wii by a very large margin. Even though it's like the complete inverse of how the Wii turned out. That's probably why I like it. But the thing with the Wii U was, it was No one supported that system, and people didn't support the Wii U so hard that Nintendo had to carry it on their own. And sitting there and watching that all play out was amazing, because Nintendo wasn't about to go third party, and they couldn't just abandon the Wii U. That was the other thing. They couldn't just say, no, Wii U's done. We'll release a new console right now because the Wii U flopped. No, because that would, number one, destroy trust in their core consumer base, and number two, if they pulled that, then whatever system they brought out next, people would go, oh yeah, well, Nintendo will probably abandon this in a year or two anyway. So they had to take a loss, the first loss they've had since getting into the video game industry, in order to support this system, so that way, it didn't feel like a complete failure and people didn't feel completely abandoned by Nintendo, and they did the best darn job they could outside of the Mario Tennis on it. Ultra Smash was playable, but a bit lacking in content. I'm so excited for Aces. I love Mario Tennis, but it was very intriguing just watching that all play out. So I'm hoping for the best with Wonderful 101 getting ported. And, yeah. Let's see. Moving right along. Hey, speaking of Switch, Night Trap 25th Anniversary Edition is coming to Switch. It's already on PC, Xbox One, PS4. I assume they've fixed the bugs on the PC one by now.
I would hope so, because I was planning on picking it up.
And as a bunch of people have pointed out, this is especially funny because old Nintendo President Howard Lincoln once said, in Congress, that you would never see Night Trap on a Nintendo system. For anyone unfamiliar with the history behind this game, Night Trap, along with Mortal Kombat, were two of the games that caused the ESRB, the Electronic Software Rating Board, to be formed because there was a big moral panic about violent video games and stuff. And
oh no, my child is looking at someone get punched.
Exactly. Well, yes, but to their credit, the ESRB, I will actually say the ESRB was a really good idea, because the assumption prior to the ESRB was that all games were aimed at kids, and this caused a lot of games to get heavily censored.
Even though those games, that are rated, their parents just buy them for them now.
Well, yes, but the effort is appreciated. Because, again, it's not about who buys the game for me personally. It's about the fact that we kept getting our games censored when they came to America because there were a lot of Japanese games coming out back then. That was when Japan ruled the industry. And in America, the belief was video games are for kids. So pretty much every game had to be censored down to what we would call an E rating. Now, by implementing the ESRB, now we can just say, no, this is an M-rated game. It has mature stuff in it. And if the parents buy it for their kids, that's their own fault. So, turned out good in the end. But yeah, during the hearings where everyone's panicking about the blood in Mortal Kombat, they also, of all games, they also brought up Night Trap, which is nowhere near Mortal Kombat. You see some red going in some tubes because, there's girls getting attacked and their blood is being drained by, cyber vampires called augurs. There's a scene where they're, in their pajamas singing the game's theme song, but that's about as bad as Night Trap got, but somehow it wound up being too risque and kind of became legendary. It's a really goofy, cheesy FMV game. And what makes it even more unusual is that a lot of people remember it being on the Sega CD. That was where it first launched, but that was not its original home. That was not the original system it was intended for. There was going to be a VHS-based video game system.
What?
Yeah, I think it was called the Selectavision or something, where you would, when you hit buttons on the controller, it would switch between, 5 different video streams. And there were, 2 or 3 games made for this system. The system never came out, and they all got ported to Sega CD. Because there's another game, I forget the name, but there's another game that's pretty much identical to Night Trap and would have been on this system. And apparently on some of the Night Trap later releases, they had, beta videos of, the promo tape for the Selectavision or whatever it was called. I should look up what it's called. But that is one of the things that makes Night Trap kind of interesting. Anyway, that does mean that we now have Night Trap with higher video quality on a bunch of systems, and it's now going to be on Switch, and I can't believe I just talked about Night Trap of all games for this long. That just happened. Let's see. You know what? I should let you go, because I know you've got some news.
Oh, I got... So, we talked about Sinner's Sacrifice for Redemption last week. The Dark Souls-like game where you level down every time you would go to a boss fight, and you get weaker and weaker as the game goes along, as you fight large, more terrifying, more powerful bosses. A bit of the backstory on the game, because they actually released an actual synopsis, was that you're a soldier who did a lot of bad things in his past, and to get to heaven or whatever, you gotta fight bosses, 7 of which represent the deadly sins. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It's set to release for tomorrow, but I've heard rumors that it will not be, and will instead coming the third quarter of this year, which is rather sad for me.
Yeah, it always sucks when a game you're waiting on gets delayed like that, but...
We're looking at you, Dark Souls 1 Remastered for the Switch, because you're also delayed till summer of this year.
Well, summer's not that far away.
Well, it's really not.
No.
But it's still thinking July-ish, which is still a few months, which... I got PC.
Yeah.
That's about all I can say for that. The next thing, you talked a little bit about it, and we had a great, great laugh before we came back on, is that God of War 4 is doing really, really well.
Do we even really call it 4, though? Because, there have been a bunch of God of Wars after 3. There was Ascension.
Yeah.
Doesn't that count as 4? It's weird people count it as 4, but it is... People call it 4 because...
It doesn't have a number.
It doesn't have a number. 3 was the last numbered one, but there have been a couple of God of Wars since then.
We were looking at a few memes earlier.
It's beautiful.
All the memes coming from this game is just great. People have started calling it God of Boy, simply because the line "boy" is used so much in the actual game itself.
Yes, initially we were all calling it Dad of War because it is one of the games where Kratos has become a father and he has a son, and though his son has a name, you wouldn't know it because he just calls him Boy.
Do you know what you are doing, boy? It's just so good.
It's a thing.
Oh, people are loving the game to death, though. The combat, they said, I've heard. I haven't actually played it yet because, once again, I state this pretty much every week. I'm a broke college student until this summer. So, it's pretty good from what I've seen. I don't want to watch any gameplay on it because I'm picking it up myself. So I'm just going from word of mouth through my friends.
I've watched a bit of gameplay, and I'm definitely going to talk about it more later in the show because I am so on the fence with this new God of War where I'm like, I think it looks like a very well-made game, and it looks like it exceeds all of my expectations for what it was going to be. But at the same time, I do think the praise might be a little bit overdone, because some people are just utterly losing it over the game, but at the same time, it is so well made and apparently quite meaty, because I've been watching people play on Twitch for multiple nights, and I'm like, this doesn't end, does it? That's good. That's a nice big game. Looks like you get your money's worth. That's appreciated. So we'll probably talk a little bit more about that later in the program.
Yep.
Anything else?
Well, I found out Cave Story was on the Nintendo Switch. I told you about that earlier.
Yes.
For those who don't know, Cave Story is my favorite game of all time. It's a platforming shooter, not really bullet hell, but it can be at some points.
It can be. It's very much a Metroidvania.
Yeah, it's my favorite Metroidvania game of all time. I actually like it even better than Metroid itself. It's just so good.
I will vouch for that. And the thing that made that game so crazy was, technically it was free. I mean, there's a bunch of different console releases of it now with different enhancements and twists and things, but the original PC release was completely free. And so everyone looked at it and was like, what the heck, this game is amazing and it's free. I gotta tell my friends to all download it because it's amazing and it's free. And then eventually, Nicholas...
It was amazing and then not free.
Well, yes, then Nicholas was like, yo, we gotta port this to consoles, but that's gonna take some money, so it will be paid now, but we want to port this to everything and do enhancements and 3D versions. And now, some of the characters from Cave Story are going to be in a fighting game. Did I tell you about that? I didn't.
You didn't, but I wanna say some stuff real quick.
You do.
Cave Story 3D came out a few years ago, in which they did a complete redo of the soundtrack, which the soundtrack in this game, guys, is already godly. And so when they farther enhanced it, you can tell, you can just say, I spent $20 on that really quick. It's like, I'm not just downloading this. I'm gonna pay them $20 for this soundtrack. Also, the Cave Story 3... I actually don't enjoy Cave Story 3D's graphics. I like the pixels.
I could see that.
It's like Cave Story's 3D, its graphics aren't really the best thing. But if you guys do have a chance to pick up Cave Story for either your Switch, your PC, or whatever, totally do it. It's so good. Tell me about this fighting game.
Well, the fighting game is called Blade Strangers. Okay, it's going to be Nintendo Switch and PS4, so you're probably going to have to wait on a PC release. And,
well, I have a Switch.
Oh, good point. You have a Switch. I think you said you have a PS4 as well. But
I used to.
You
sold it for PC parts.
Well, anyway, yes, it is being made by Nicholas. It is a 2D fighter with 3D pre-rendered sprites, for better or for worse, when they're cel-shaded, so that might look a little wonky, but it is a crossover fighter between a bunch of just utterly random games that Nicholas has, including Cave Story, but also Code of Princess, what was the name of it? I want to say Katawa Shoujo? The one about the girl with the fishing rod. And I think those are the main ones, mostly Code of Princess, Katawa Shoujo, and Cave Story.
Hey, if it has Quote, it's bound to be a good game.
Quote is confirmed. Oh, okay. Wait. No, I know Curly Brace is confirmed. I'm assuming Quote is confirmed. I'm trying to double check that, but...
It's like... Quote is the main character, by the way, guys. You don't really learn his name till the end, but...
Yeah, there it is. Sayonara Umihara Kawase. And Nicholas games like Cave Story Plus and other surprise entrants. That could be interesting. All I know is I like Code of Princess, so I pretty much buy every fighting game unless they royally screw up, which I'm still surprised how much Capcom has managed to screw up.
You're really salty over Capcom still.
Yes! Capcom's like the fighting game company, and I don't care about any of their fighting games this generation. It's very awkward. So, that's a thing.
If you can't tell... Jel's talked about Capcom pretty much every single week.
Have I?
You've said how much you hate them right now.
I'm a little
Or mentioned it every single week.
I'm a little peeved with them. Street Fighter V almost gets me to buy it, and then every time I'm like, oh wait, they're probably going to censor the new content they just released so they can show the thing on ESPN. And I'm like, no. After the last 5 times you've done that, I'm just done. You go do your Street Fighter V thing. I'm not paying money for that. And every time I think, maybe I'll pick up Street Fighter V this time, they do something else stupid that makes me say, I guess I'm not picking up Street Fighter V this time. And Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is just a disaster. Which I feel bad about because there are people who like it and apparently the gameplay is good, but Capcom screwed that one up about as bad as possible with terrible visuals and a horrible, tiny character roster in a game where the character roster is the most important thing. And this is coming from someone who doesn't care about the X-Men. Because that was the major thing for everyone else, is that Marvel told Capcom no X-Men, and considering the original Marvel vs. Capcom games were based off of an X-Men game first, and thus had a lot of X-Men, the lack of X-Men in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is felt. But I don't even care about that. I care about the fact the roster is, I don't know, it's really...
It's small.
It's small, it's pretty bland for the most part. No real crazy surprise entrants, except, I guess you could say, Jeddah and Firebrand, kinda, but Firebrand was in the last one. So it's nice to have Jeddah around.
So, you're the main VR man here on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear May 8th? Did you hear about May 8th?
No.
Mega Dimension Neptunia V2R?
I will talk about that after we... Actually, no, we can do it before a break. I've been following V2R, and there was a lot of confusion about it. It is just a port of Hyperdimension Neptunia V2, but the disappointing thing is, from all the things we can find, the only parts that are in VR are the room sequences. It's the last Hyperdimension Neptunia game that they had released with a few enhancements. It looks like they have fixed my number one complaint with the combat system, which was the lack of a movement circle. The movement circle was in all the games except V2. So, but yeah, it looks like they fixed my complaint with the combat system, but the main game is still just V2 again, which I already own, with the only new addition being about, a few tweaks, maybe a new dungeon, and about a half hour of scenes in VR that you don't need VR to play, but you can use it in VR where the Neptunia characters, invade your room and you hang out with them. It's like, that looks really fun, except...
I already own this game.
I already own this game, and if they... Currently, there's a lot of confusion about this, because one review made it sound like you could play the whole game in VR, but the wording is very confusing, and we're trying to squeeze information out of them. Because if I can play that game again in full VR, then yes, I'm in. If not, I'm a little iffy about spending that much money on the same game that I bought a couple years ago again.
And that's definitely understandable.
Anyway, we need to take a quick break. Here is Dark Age by The Urge, here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Please stay tuned for more games. That was Walk It Talk It by Migos featuring Drake here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, still joined by spontaneous sidekick Sully.
I'm always here.
Here on GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. So let's get back to the video game news. First of all, apparently MechWarrior 5 Mercenaries is a thing. I have not been paying attention to this. I think it's been very localized on PC, but it's good to hear MechWarriors coming back in some form. And apparently it is coming this year. There's a trailer up. I have not sat down and watched the trailer, but I'm happy to hear that MechWarrior is back. You heard anything about it?
No.
All right, that wraps that up. I think a more important PC release that has me very happy and is only 2 days away, supposedly. Princess Maker 5 is coming to Steam in English.
Ooh.
Finally! I am so happy about this. With this, we could say we have all the Princess Maker games, because who cares about 4? They did skip over 4, because a lot of people skip over 4. But if they translated it, I would pick it up. And it will probably be a very shaky translation. Apparently, the annoying thing is, right when they announced that the game was coming to Steam, a fan translation group had finally finished their translation 2 days earlier.
That's gotta suck.
Yeah, but I am going to say I really hope the fan translation group makes their translation compatible with the Steam release, because I guarantee it'll be better. Because the thing with the Steam releases of the Princess Maker series is that they're Korean. Princess Maker is apparently very popular in Korea, has maintained its popularity to this day, and some company called CPK over there is like, hey, we're going to take this Japanese game, translate it into Korean, and then translate it from Korean into a bunch of other languages. So it's from Japanese to Korean to English, which isn't as bad as it sounds, but is still more than a bit rough. The games tend to release with a number of bugs. But as someone who has been interested in the Princess Maker series since the original English leaks of Princess Maker 2 back in the late 90s, that I downloaded on dial-up and ran in DOS. Remember this? I'm very happy to finally have this game. I've been kicking around whether or not I want to do a Princess Maker marathon stream or not. I already made a layout for it, so I probably should.
Invite me for that Discord call if you do that.
I might. I'm thinking I might name my daughter Boy.
Boy.
Because I was like, this is the challenge. Am I a better dad than Kratos?
Yes.
So I need to name my daughter Boy. But yes, if you're wondering why Princess Maker... You know what? That's a long story. You know what? I will actually shelve that story for once.
It's like, that's a stream story.
Yeah, it might be, because... Just so... It's such
if you want to hear that story, you got to check out the stream.
Yes, if I get around to the stream... I don't tell people my Twitter on here enough, mostly because I barely use Twitter. Like, Twitter...
I couldn't even find your Twitter, and I'm a master at digging stuff up.
It's Jelton-Z.
Oh, okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, it's just it's at Jelton-Z.
I was searching GameBabble.
Nah, I think I should mention that in my profile, but anyway, yeah, it's just Jelton-Z on Twitter. That's my Twitter. Admittedly, I barely use it because for, I would say, about 1 year, I actually used Twitter actively and read what people posted and responded to things, and it wound up being way more stress and headache than it was worth, so I pretty much just quit Twitter.
But you can have some pretty good memes. I'm just saying.
As true as that is, it's just not worth it. Twitter is too much drama and stress. So I only use my Twitter very sparingly to say, hey, I'm doing a stream if anyone wants to join, or to comment on certain things, or be exuberant about something, maybe retweet something I find fun. I use my Twitter very sparingly. If people respond to me, I will respond to them, but I do not seek out conversations on Twitter anymore because it's way too much of a headache, way too much drama, and I'd probably wind up getting banned for saying thank you. That is a thing now. Twitter bans people for saying thank you now.
I believe it.
Yeah, it's a mess. A friend of mine got banned for saying thank you to someone, and she was not happy about that. Let's see. Moving on. You know what's kind of Princess Maker related? Summer Lesson, Allison Snow, and Chisato have an English trailer. Those games will be out in English in Asia. No U.S. release, but you can import them because the PS4 is, thank goodness, region-free.
Woohoo!
Yeah, I already have Allison Snow in Japanese, and that's the one I'd been waiting on and was really worried about. If you're unfamiliar with Summer Lesson, VR game made by Namco because they were so weirded out by what it's like to stand next to a Tekken character in VR. Because they were working on a VR thing to throw into Tekken, and they did that, and then the Tekken team was like, we gotta make a game based entirely around this. So Summer Lesson is a game where you play a tutor who has 1 week to help some girl get her test scores up. So it winds up playing a lot like a really short version of Princess Maker. And, they released 3 different games. Each one is a different girl with a different situation. And Allison Snow is going to be the weirdest one because she's American, as you might be able to tell from the name. And the whole shtick with Allison Snow is that she's trying to learn Japanese, and it's pretty good, but she stumbles on her word and bites her lip, and she's trying to learn Japanese, and so it's going to be really awkward having someone who speaks English speaking Japanese subtitled into English for an English speaker who doesn't know Japanese. But I'm glad they're doing it because she's my favorite, and then Chisato I just didn't care about, but apparently she's packed in with the pack. Because this is going to be like a boxed release that has all the DLC, and that's how they've been releasing the Asian versions of the game. They don't do the same digital release plan they have in Japan. So I'm happy to hear that is at least coming in Asia. Good enough. Let's see.
I got a few things.
Oh, what you got?
Well, we talked about this off air. We talked about Frostpunk for maybe 5 minutes last week. but it's actually out now.
Good.
I had originally said that I couldn't find anything for a release date, but it is actually out today. It just came out. It already has 55 ratings on Metacritic, so it's got an 8.8 out of 10 on Metacritic, and its Metascore from actual critics was an 86, so it's not doing too bad. A good synopsis of the game is that it's a frozen tundra world. People develop steam technology, and you have to basically run the city and make decisions about whether or not to do certain things. Like, I know some issues you can collaborate on in that can be stuff like child labor, stuff like that. So, production might go up, people might hate you. Sounds like a really interesting game. It was made by 11-Bit Studios, which is a bunch of people mainly who gathered together off of CD Projekt, who are the guys who made The Witcher, stuff like that. And some of the other games they've made, such as This War Is Mine. What's some other ones? I had them just pulled up.
Yeah, I decided to look up some images of Frostpunk. For a minute, I thought it was a real-time strategy game, but more of a, like...
It's a city builder. It's like Sims.
It's like SimCity, but, like, with...
Everyone has a chance to die.
Yeah, a harsher SimCity in a fantasy frozen setting. Not like medieval fantasy, but like...
steampunk fantasy.
Kind of steampunk, kind of Lost Planet. So that looks very interesting. That looks like the graphics are really nice.
I know this game looks absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, that is a fine looking game, and like you said, it's got a good score on Metacritic. It's good to hear that it's sounds like it's turning out good.
Another release of today, The Swords of Ditto, which I talked about in great depth last week. Released today. It's so far on Metacritic, it's got a 77 based on 7 critics, and only 2. It's to be decided with the user score because only 2 people have rated it on Metacritic. So not a lot of people have obviously been playing it so far, but it's a role-playing action RPG where you create unique adventure for different heroes, and depending on what you did in a previous game, will affect how you play out in this game, whether being certain monsters alive, stuff like that. It's also multiplayer, I've heard, for up to 4 people, I believe. So that's bound to be lots of fun.
Yeah, I might need to look into this more if it's 4-player co-op, because that's my kind of jam.
I love co-op games much.
I specifically love 4-player co-op action RPG gauntlet-y type things. Like, that is my jam. I love those.
This feels like a cross between, like, Enter the Gungeon with medieval fantasy pseudo Undertale, if that makes any sense, because your previous playthroughs affect your next one.
Indeed.
So it's bound to be pretty interesting. I'm gonna have to pick up a copy once I'm actually working.
Good luck with that. So, moving on, I should probably get this off my screen. Apex Construct is getting a boxed release and new content when the boxed release comes out. That will be like a free patch for people who already own it. Apex Construct is a supposedly rather lengthy and meaty single-player first-person bow game for the PlayStation VR that I've heard relatively good things about. They've recently patched it to have more movement options, which is always good. And, yeah, apparently they're going for a boxed release and adding more content. They have not elucidated on what kind of content is going to be added, but that's very nice, especially because it was definitely a bigger, more fleshed out adventure than what we're used to seeing in VR, and was part of that. What was it? That was February. It was part of the February deluge where we had a bunch of really, really good VR games come out one after another for the PlayStation VR. On that note, today and the day after tomorrow and stuff, there are a whole lot of games coming to PlayStation VR this week. Nothing too hyper exciting, but a lot of stuff. Okay. So today, Code 51 Mecha Arena, which, as I said, you can't turn off the blinders yet, so I'm withholding my purchase until I can turn off the blinders. A game called Dead Secret, which I think has been out for a while, but now there's a VR version coming. Just in Time Incorporated, which I described as kind of being a super hot knockoff, so that's interesting. The physical release of Rick and Morty Virtual Reality, along with Dream Angling, which is a weird fishing game where you fish inside of dreams. And then MLB Home Run Derby VR and a game called Rage Room on the 28th, which Rage Room looks kind of fun. If basic, it kind of looks like you're just in a room and they're going to throw robots at you and you have a bunch of different weapons to kill them with. So it'll probably be kind of a wave shooter, but it also looks kind of fun. That's still a good amount of games for just a week. Just 2 days in a week. Yeah, that is a ridiculous amount of games just suddenly be coming out of nowhere. So yeah, that's a thing. Not sure how that happened. Also, while we're on the subject of the PlayStation VR, Dream Match Tennis for PlayStation VR will be the first PSVR game to use the old PS3 navigation controller, which is surprising because I didn't think that those were supported, but apparently they are now. For anyone unfamiliar, the navigation controller was essentially the PlayStation Move's answer to the Wii's Nunchuck controller, and a lot of people have been asking if it could be used on PS4 or not, and apparently it can be, but the problem, of course, is that there's no motion tracking there, and in general, VR games like to have, 2 motion controllers tracking each hand, but tennis, you only really need one arm, so they're doing that. Good thing I already have one, although it's a good question on if it still holds a charge, because one of the things I found out, even though I used my PlayStation Moves quite regularly, the PlayStation Moves had terrible batteries in them, and they would lose their ability to hold a charge very fast. Well, not very, very fast, but fast enough that it was worth noting. Fast enough that I actually have some that don't hold a charge anymore. That makes me very sad, because I love my Moves. And at the time, the cost of a new battery was the same as the cost of a new controller. Prices on those controllers have gone up. But, still, I'm very sad that happened. Hopefully the new model PlayStation Moves that actually have the super skinny USB connectors that they just came out with, maybe those are supposed to have better batteries in them. Fingers crossed. Ooh, something just flashed across my attention. Hollow Knight, right? Uh-huh. So its final free DLC will be coming out sometime, they say early 2018, but it's pretty much almost mid-2018 at this point. So hopefully sometime soon. Gods in Glory is Hollow Knight's final free DLC. Team Cherry, the developers, decided they wanted to release free DLC at first because it would kind of draw people to the game more. Mm-hmm. And boy, were these DLCs jam-packed with new stuff. I believe it was the first DLC, the Grim Troupe, was filled with 3 or 4 new boss fights, a whole separate new storyline, with, 7 more items and charms and stuff. It was so much fun to play. Hollow Knight is my second favorite Metroidvania game, only second to Cave Story, which is my favorite game. Mm-hmm. It's action-packed, very, very fast, actually. Super fast. Game.
in which you take control of a little bug and you go on an adventure to kind of bring back the life of a kingdom. But it's had 2 free DLCs before this, and has just gotten another one announced in, well, it was actually quite a while ago when it was announced, but we haven't talked about it.
Right.
But Gods and Glory will come out sometime 2018, and I'm looking forward to it. It's free, so you guys get 3 free DLCs if you pick up Hollow Knight. It's pretty good.
Good to hear. Well, we're going to have to take another break, so here is Lash Out by Alice Merton here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for more GameBabble. That was God's Plan by Drake here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, still co-hosted by spontaneous sidekick Sully.
For a little bit longer, it's almost time for those 2 o'clock classes I'm ever so fond of.
Indeed. So, let's get back to our video game news.
I got one thing. We
talked
about it last week, Defiance 2050. I said I would be playing the open beta, and I did. Well, it wasn't an open beta. It was technically a closed beta because you had to sign up for it. But I did play it. Originally I was going to stream it on my Twitch, but, I don't have Ethernet going down in my basement right now. So I couldn't stream. Mainly because Wi-Fi box is upstairs and on the right side of the house. Computer room is downstairs and on the left side of the house. So not very good internet quality right now. What I was able to do, though, is get a recording. So there'll definitely probably be a video up on my channel sometime soon.
What is your channel anyway?
Babbling Sully on YouTube, same as my Twitch.
Gotcha. Okay, I'll try to link you.
All right, I've linked you in my description.
Excellent.
On both
That'll
of
make that'll make it easier.
It connects us.
I guess we're franchising now.
Yeah, exactly. Watch out for those GameBabble shirts.
Man, now I have a shirt design in my head.
You're welcome.
Actually, well, dang it wouldn't be a GameBabble shirt. It'd be a Waku Waku 7 shirt. I need a shirt that just has Bonus Coon's face and headband on it. That'd be amazing. Just a Bonus Coon shirt.
Yes.
Needs to happen.
But back to Defiance 2050.
Back to that.
Defiance 2050, I thought was really just going to be an entirely new game. I was wrong, which isn't exactly too bad, because I loved Defiance. It's basically a new reskin of the game, but it was said that they will be adding new stuff to it. From what I've seen, the controls on PC, at least, could use some work, but hey, that's what being able to set your own keys are. The animations are fluid, they're very nice. The gunplay, as always with Defiance, was very, very fun. I remember at one point in the starting tutorial, you get a new gun. Well, it's not a new gun because you don't get to keep it. You get a high energy gun, and it's a minigun, and they just drop enemies from the sky in the tens, just so that you can have fun doing that. And oh my goodness, is it amazing. I remember sitting there laughing my head off because I'm sitting there with a minigun running around and just standing in one spot just mowing down enemies like it's nobody's business, and it's absolutely amazing. The second best thing about it, second best thing, I think Defiance is great, is, so the story in Defiance was actually not too shabby. It's still mainly focused around the online gameplay of it. It's sort of like, think of a third-person view Destiny crossed with Halo almost. And that's essentially what you got when you play Defiance. And it's absolutely amazing. It did look like on the beta we were having a bit of server problems, which is to be expected. It was on Sunday, though, so it simply might have just been the time to close down the beta. So, I don't really know, but I'm looking forward to the full release, and if I actually have Ethernet at the time when it releases, I'll probably stream it. But, things are going rather well with it, I feel.
Good to hear. Yeah, it was rather interesting that they decided that for Defiance that they were not going to make a new game, but instead upgrade the old one and then just add on to it, which I think, it's probably for the best, because if anyone's actually going to go back and play Defiance, it's going to be people who remember how much they like the original.
Definitely.
Yeah. Wow, there was like a whole pile of news that came out that I had completely missed. But before I get into any of that, listening to you talk about Defiance made me kind of sad that Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet didn't have a proper online mode. Only to remember, there's going to be DLC that adds half of a proper online mode.
But it's paid.
Yes, it is paid DLC. Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet Ambush of the Imposters. Apparently it comes out tomorrow, at least in Japan. I don't know anything about a US release, but there's supposed to also be... Oh, good. You don't have to pay for the online thing. The version 1.2.0 update will add the 4v4 deathmatch, which I want to know if it's a real deathmatch.
Goodness. And not just boss fights.
Not just boss fights. If anyone's never played Sword Art Online Fatal Bullet, I know it sounds strange that it's called Sword Art Online, and yet it has very limited online. But that's because
Sword Art Offline.
It is. It's based on an anime series about an online game. But the problem with the online is that it's only, like, co-op and versus against bosses. There's no, as of right now, you can team up with a bunch of other people to take down a boss, and then that's it. Or you team up with a bunch of other people to try to take down a boss faster than the other team. And that's all it has. And it's the weirdest thing, because it's like, you've built an entire MMORPG world, and all you need to do is drop people into my game so we can run around and shoot things together.
This is like Sony accidentally flipping the switch for Rocket League, I feel.
It is a little bit like that. It's weird, but that game has a lot of flaws, but I still have a lot of fun with it, as long as I'm not following the story, because the story progression is complete garbage. But running around on the surface just shooting things is really fun in that game. And now I understand why they released it, because I was trying to figure out, why would you make a Sword Art Online game based on Gun Gale Online? Because I don't really follow Sword Art Online. And the Gun Gale Online arc was a while ago. Oh, they've just started a new anime series called Sword Art Online Alternative Gun Gale Online, which has little to no involvement from the original writer and has no Kirito. Instead, it's about a girl who has a complex about how tall she is, so she plays a very short girl in the game who wears all pink and has a pink gun and shoots things. And it's like, this looks nice. It's not about convoluted plans to kill people in VR, and instead it's just about someone having fun enjoying a shooter and learning how to get good. That's nice. That's nice. You know what? Since we are running out of time before you need to leave, let's hit up what has got to be one of the silliest things. But, so the Final Fantasy VII Remake, they're looking for planners.
Seriously?
They're looking for planners. What have you been doing for the past 2 years, 2 or 3 years now?
When did they announce this again?
2016? Maybe 2015? I forget. It was.
They're just now getting into. They're not even in the planning stage yet. They're instead looking for planners.
This game is. You know what the worst part is? Not only is this game never coming out, but they've already said it's going to be episodic. So, I'm expecting episode 1 to come out next console generation. And
if
then
that. Two console generations? I'm calling 2.
Oh, I think that might be a little bit much. But I think next console generation, episode 1 will come out. It will be terrible and everyone will hate it. And then they will spend the entire console generation trying to fix episode 1, and we will never get any of the rest of the series.
It'll come out when you get your PC fixed. Never.
Pretty much. It's a work
in progress.
This This is the most amazing thing. It's like Square Enix has invented a new form of torture. It is such a good thing that I don't care that much about Final Fantasy VII, but man, do I feel bad for the people that do. I don't dislike it, I just think it's okay. But the people who love Final Fantasy VII, which there's tons of them out there, it is one of the most beloved RPGs of all time, especially Japanese RPGs.
Definitely Japanese RPG.
Yeah, it kind of caused Japanese RPGs to actually get accepted in America. It was kind of a big deal. So, I feel bad for the people that want this, because what Square Enix doesn't understand, what no one seems to understand anymore, is why people even wanted this remake in the first place. Because people have wanted a Final Fantasy VII remake since the PS2 came out. And the reason why is not because they wanted it all changed. Like, that's the thing. They're like, well, we're going to make it better because if you wanted to... And a lot of people are like, if you want to play, the original Final Fantasy VII, just play the original. And it's like, I get that, but Final Fantasy VII has a unique problem amongst the Final Fantasies. It is quite possibly the only game in the entire franchise whose graphics don't quite hold up. Now, I think the old grow-shaded, mostly untextured graphics of Final Fantasy VII have a certain charm to them. I actually quite like them. But the reason why people are like, they need to remake this game is because, it's the RPG they fell in love with. It's one of their all-time favorites, and they want to spread that love. But here comes a newcomer who sees all these flashy, pretty, gorgeous Final Fantasy games.
And goes to try 7, and is quite disappointed.
Well, they don't even try 7. That's the thing. Like, they go, oh, wow, Final Fantasy looks cool. I want to get into it. Which game should I start with? And a billion people are like, you should start with 7. 7's the best. Which one's the best one? Oh, start with 7. 7's the best.
And they go and it's not flashy.
Yeah, they look at it and they look at a screenshot and they're like, does it have to be 7? and that's the problem. So people are like, could they just redo the graphics? And admittedly, on PC, you can almost do this, because there is a PC release, and it has some amazing mods that I've seen in action where people have actually made better character models, taken the super deformed models and made them like full size and more proper looking, and it's very nice. Basically, you can get Final Fantasy VII to look closer to Final Fantasy VIII, but it is still limited by the fact that it's whatever engine it's running on is the original Final Fantasy VII engine. It's meant to be a PS1 game, so you're very limited in how many polygons you can use. You don't really get any, access to crazy lighting effects. And most importantly, the biggest issue with it is that since this is you hacking new models into the game, it tends to be kind of buggy and glitchy, and sometimes things don't line up during important cutscenes, and it can be a little wonky because of that. But what's sad is that all people want Square Enix to do is that, but professionally. Just take the exact same game, swap out the models with, something pretty and fancy, and we good. That's all they want. But, no, they gotta overcomplicate this. Oh, we're gonna have an action battle system, and we're gonna expand the story, and it's gonna be episodic, and it's gonna be amazing, and it's been 2-3 years.
And it's never gonna happen.
It's never gonna happen. It's been 2-3 years, and you're still recruiting for planners.
All right, that's all the time I got. So I guess we're going to go on break.
We are going to go on break. He's going to go get to his classes, but we will be back with just a bit more video game news and information here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave.
I was Sully.
That was Sully. I'm Jell, and coming up next is Reflections by Mr. Wives here on 89.5 FM KCFV. That was Pills and Automobiles by Chris Brown featuring Yo Gotti and A Boogie here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. Sorry about the rather lengthy break there. I tried to come back earlier, but we got an utterly random phone call. Anyway, this is GameBabble, your source for Penguin Coon Wars news. So, let's get on with some of that, because we actually have some. The bad news, I kind of think it's all bad news. Penguin Coon Wars will be coming to PS4, Switch, and Xbox One when it comes to the US. In Japan, it was Switch only. And we are actually getting a boxed release, while in Japan it was digital only. For PS4 and Switch. Xbox One is still digital only. And apparently there will be a special launch edition, which, oh wow, only 5,000 copies of each will be made? That's kind of an interesting thing, but it's a little pricey. The twist is that the launch edition comes with a physical patch you can put on your clothes of the main character, along with a digital soundtrack. And that second part is the part that really disappoints me, because I would have liked the physical soundtrack. I would have actually pre-ordered it for a physical soundtrack, because the soundtrack is so good in that game. But the thing that's weird is the regular edition of the game, at least the physical regular edition, is twice as expensive as the Japanese release. And I find that very strange. Because while I do think the game was a very good value and that it's kind of worth the price, I'm befuddled as to why there would be such a huge price increase for the US. I mean, unless they're going to include the Hebereke DLC, then, and even then, that price increase is kind of nuts. So I'm baffled by that. But that's only the price they're listing for the physical release, so maybe the digital release will be half price. Maybe. I'd like to not get screwed. Moving right along. Hey, guess what? Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus R is coming to Nintendo Switch. This was announced in Korea, and the Korean version will have both the Japanese and Korean soundtracks. Well, the Korean Sharp Reload soundtrack. To anyone unfamiliar, for some reason when they did the Korean release of Guilty Gear XX Sharp Reload, they got a Korean band to do an entirely new soundtrack. And while a lot of people swear by the original Japanese soundtrack, a lot of people had also spent so many hours listening to it that the Korean soundtrack was a nice change of pace, and being able to switch would be nice. Now, having said that, I don't know if this is getting a US release. And the thing that definitely has people slightly baffled is, why are you putting Accent Core Plus R on the Switch and not Xrd? Well, that's because Xrd is made in Unreal Engine 3 instead of Unreal Engine 4. A lot of Japanese developers prefer 3 to 4, and that's a bit of an issue because the Switch is not compatible with Unreal Engine 3 like it is Unreal Engine 4. So that has made porting it to the Switch strikingly difficult, which is incredibly unfortunate. But what's also unfortunate is the fact that it's Accent Core Plus R instead of like some kind of Guilty Gear collection, because I might maybe know some people who swear by Guilty Gear XX Sharp Reload / and really hate Accent Core. Speaking of the Switch, though, Saga Scarlet Graces will be adding new characters to the PS4, Switch, and PC releases, which may or may not come to America, but considering it's getting a PC release, I'm saying it's coming to America. Saga Scarlet Grace is the newest entry in the Saga series, which is very hit or miss. Games like Saga Frontier, Unlimited Saga, Romancing Saga. For me, I love the original Game Boy sagas, and I love Romancing Saga too, and I pretty much hate the entire rest of the series, but the ones I love enough to try the rest of the series. So I'm really excited about a possible US release for Saga Scarlet Graces. Anyway, there will be 3 brand new characters, and 4 of the characters, for some reason, are getting new voices, because I guess they're adding a bunch of new content? I don't know. But it is cool that it's getting new characters and new content and stuff. And speaking of new content, oh egad! Later today, Splatoon version 3.0 comes out, and it's apparently a big update. It's going to add more clothing, going to add 2 new songs, I think it says it's adding a new stage, it's making changes to everything. It is a huge balance and bug-fixing patch. Like, it looks utterly nuts. So if you are a Splatoon fan, Splatoon 2 is getting crazy updated. And while we're talking about things like, well, actually this has nothing to do with anything, but hey, they've also just announced Gundam Extreme Versus 2 for Japanese arcades, which will have Gundam Barbados Lupus Rex, Tri-Burning Gundam, and Gundam Maxter, which makes me very happy because for me the more G Gundams the better. But this now puts the Gundam Versus series in a very strange spot. See, the Gundam Versus series is the reason why these arena battle games, the arena-style fighters, have really taken off. It's sort of taken over Virtualon's place in the pantheon of these kinds of games. It's been exceedingly popular in Japan, and we kind of just got a Gundam Versus on PS4 not that long ago. And we were getting some DLC mobile suits and stuff, but that one was really weird because there was absolutely no G Gundams in it. And they kept saying, no G Gundams, we want this to be ranged. No G Gundams, we want this to be all ranged. Except that it plays like the other Gundam Versus games, which had the G Gundams in it, and eventually they patched in Burning and Master Gundam, came out as DLC, so it's like, well, that was complete BS. Good, they're back. I'm very glad to hear that another version of Burning Gundam, along with Gundam Maxter, are coming to Extreme Versus 2. Except it looks like this means that the previous Gundam Versus on PS4 is going to be abandoned as they begin to focus on this new release. And keep in mind, this is an arcade release for Japanese arcades. So that's a little awkward. But what makes this, like, extra super awkward is now people are sitting here wondering, when are we going to get a home port of Gundam Extreme Versus Maxi Boost on? And what that is the final update of the PS3 version of Gundam Extreme Versus. And you'd probably say, well, why would we want that? Well, because that one has 150 mobile suits on it, and it never got a home port because they didn't want to cut into the arcade profits. Now that that's going to be leaving arcades, it's time to do a home port, except that it's a PS3 engine, but they're going to have to put it on PS4 because who's going to play it on PS3? And there's a real question of if it's going to get a home port at all, if it's going to get a US release. And I decided to take a minute to type in Gundam Extreme Versus Maxi Boost, and oh my goodness, not only does it have Noble, but it has freaking Rising Gundam in it. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is so much better. And now this Gundam Extreme Versus series is in a very awkward spot. Because once again, this is the even worse thing. This is going to be the next big engine reboot that's going to feel like a massive downgrade. Because a lot of people still swear by Gundam Versus Next on the PSP, back when the series was handled by Capcom. And that was a Japanese-only PSP game, and it was really annoying because the only home release was on PSP. It was in arcades in Japan, but home release was on PSP, and it was faster and had more mobile suits and was generally considered better than Extreme Versus, but Extreme Versus was the next best thing. And I know that the Gundam Versus on PS4 was considered a massive downgrade compared to Extreme Versus on the PS3. And it's all just in such a weird spot, because now we have 3 different releases of Gundam Extreme Versus existing in a release limbo. We have the currently released Gundam Versus on PS4, the unreleased on home systems Gundam Extreme Versus Maxi Boost Full On, and then the upcoming Gundam Extreme Versus 2, and the American audiences who don't have these games in their arcades, who barely have arcades at all, are saying, so which one are we getting? Can we get some of these? And yeah, it's all in a very bizarre limbo state. Anyway, time for a quick break. Here is Wanna Be Here by 10 True here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening, and stay tuned for just a little bit more GameBabble Live. That was Die For You by The Weeknd here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave, diverse music for your diverse mind. I'm your host, Jell, and welcome back to GameBabble Live, your video game news and information show, which airs every Tuesday from noon to 3 p.m. Still hard to do that. I'm so used to saying Wednesday. Anyway, but it's Tuesday, though. Getting back to our last segment, we've got a little bit more news. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is going to have an update that will add T-Elos Re and Poppy Buster. T-Elos Re will be available to everyone who has already beaten the game, and it is a scythe-wielding redesign of good old T-Elos, Cosmos' palette-swapped rival from the Xeno Saga series. while Poppy Buster is only going to be available to people who have purchased the expansion pass, the thing that's supposed to get you more quests and add-ons and things, because there will be a special quest to get the Poppy Buster. The Poppy Buster, it would appear, is a yellow-haired version of the character Poppy who can summon a giant robot thing. It's like a combination Hulkbuster Gurren Lagann themed after a Nopon. It's kind of amazing, and apparently, unlike Poppy, anyone can use the Poppy Buster. It looks fun. It looks very fun, especially because now you're going to have a robot that summons a robot, because, yo dog, I heard you like robots. Moving right along from that, though, SNK is working on some kind of 40th anniversary hardware, meaning some kind of Neo Geo Mini, which we already had something like that with the Neo Geo X Gold, except that was a pile of crap. So hopefully the Neo Geo Mini will actually be, good. I'd like to see this. Moving on, Disgaea HD is coming soonish for, Nintendo Switch. I think there might be a PC release, maybe PS4. It is an HD remake of the original first Disgaea game, which is a fantastic little strategy game that you can grind in for eons, I don't even know how many digits the levels have, but after you reach max level, you can start again and get even maxer levels. Disgaea it kind of prides itself on the infinite grinding. Unfortunately, signs currently indicate that they're using the new character designs. Now, that might not be a problem to anyone except me, except that what that means is that they're using the sprites they already made for, Disgaea 5, and they're just slapping them in the original Disgaea instead of, actually including the character sprites, redone character sprites of the actual original Disgaea, and I find that lazy and disappointing. Especially because I'm a little attached to a few of the old designs. Let's see. Anything else? Yes. New Little King's story is delisted. This was I think it was a Vita game that was sort of a sequel to the Wii game Little King's story. Well, yeah, now it's gone now. No warning, it's just gone. And the online service shuts down May 20th. Thankfully, it does not require online, except that in America, it was digital only. So if you didn't buy it and you want to play it in English now, you have to import a Asian English physical copy. So yay for digital distribution. In fact, rumor has it that the PlayStation 5 will be all digital. Which, if it does that, then screw that console. It will be a very hard sell for me. And I'm sure eventually they'll come out with some kind of game that I absolutely positively cannot resist. Especially because I love VR. But I do not want to go full digital. Especially not on consoles. It works on PC because PC has Steam. Console cannot get Steam. I've mentioned this in a previous episode. Because the thing is, PC is kind of all-encompassing. Steam is all-encompassing. When you buy something on Steam, it's gonna theoretically work on future PCs that you buy. There's a certain degree of perceived permanence to it, on top of the fact that the way PC game releases were, they were highly volatile anyway. And, PC is just a very different market, because you can also back things up and hack things if they start not working, and so on. The console market, however, is always in flux. There are always competing consoles, each with their own digital marketplace, and you never know when one of the companies will decide to screw you over with their latest console release. Case in point, last generation, I was all Xbox 360. I loved the Xbox 360. It wasn't until about three-fourths of the way through that generation that Microsoft started putting in place rules that really pissed me off and caused me to switch to PS3. And right now, I don't want to touch my Xbox One with a 10-foot pole. I actually booted it up again to play Panzer Dragoon Orta, because of course I did. And they did update the interface yet again, It's still a garbage interface. Microsoft still needs to fire people. They haven't fired enough interface designers. Your interface is still terrible. It's amazing how bad Microsoft's interface for the Xbox One has been. It's an improvement, though. Like, I can almost navigate it. Almost. It's still a mess. Cripes. Microsoft, you're known for making OSs, for making interfaces. Why are all your interfaces terrible now? Can we just go back to Windows 3.1 when things weren't stupid? Like, does anyone really use the start menu anymore? Really? So, that's where we're at with the X. I don't like the Xbox One at all. So, yeah, all the stuff I bought on, and initially, all of my stuff that I bought on 360 did not carry over to Xbox One. It does now, because now they're desperately working on backwards compatibility, which is fast becoming the number one reason to own an Xbox One, is the enhanced backwards compatibility with original Xbox and Xbox 360 games. That is the best thing the Xbox One has going for it. I haven't turned my Xbox One on in, like, over a year. I want to say like 2 years, possibly 3. And I turned it on for Panzer Dragoon. And because they're making all these Xbox Live Arcade games are starting to become backwards compatible and stuff, it's like, good. Because that's what you have going for you, and that is necessary. But the PS4 does not have that backwards compatibility. Now, for the PS3 and the PSP and the Vita, I mentioned you bought a retro PS1 Classics game on any one of those, and you'd have it on all 3 of them, and then the PS4 comes out, and it doesn't have the PS1 Classics that are available on the previous 3 Sony systems. Well, what happened to that? You know, they just abandoned that. It's like, yo, what's going on? And now, you know, if the PlayStation 5 goes all digital, but the Xbox 2 goes the opposite direction of the Xbox One and winds up actually being physical, especially if they actually put a VR headset on it, I will gleefully switch to the Xbox 2. You can't go all... One of the reasons why I am a console gamer instead of a PC gamer is because I like having physical copies. I like having hard copies. And as I mentioned, there is a market for hard copies. Limited run games exists entirely for doing these limited release hard copies. I just mentioned paying twice as much to get a physical copy of Penguin Coon Wars instead of just downloading it digitally. Having hard physical copies matters to admittedly a niche group of people, us collectors. But you don't want to abandon the collectors, I don't think, because we tend to have a pretty loud mouth, and we get very pissy about digital-only games. Digital-only is just, it's not going to work for consoles. It absolutely isn't. And as the Xbox One has shown, it is possible to completely botch your console to the point where it doesn't offer any of the benefits of being a console. I as much as I talk about how PC gaming gives me personally a headache because I am able to find the weirdest problems with PCs. Like, for some reason, today, in the studio right now, I can't get Google Chrome to close. I prefer to browse... In the studio, we have Internet Explorer and Google Chrome, and I try not to use Internet Explorer because it usually locks up when I go to any video game news sites and crashes. So I tend to use Chrome because it's more stable, except this time Chrome, it wasn't loading pages, so I tried to close and reopen it, and it just wouldn't close. And I tried to Control-Alt-Delete end task, and it still wouldn't close. So I went to a command prompt and typed in task kill, and it still wouldn't close. This is the level of what the crap computers that I deal with constantly. And I don't know, I guess I'm cursed. I'm able to get computers to do the dumbest things because I'm overly ambitious with them or something. I don't know. But as much as I cause dumb things like that to happen on computers, the Xbox One, nope. I'm the only reason I have that system around is for Crimson Dragon, because I already bought it, and I don't think selling it's really going to be worth it. That's where I'm at. I'm sorry, Xbox One fans. Me and that system don't get along, and I actually feel really bad for Xbox One owners, because the 360 was so good, wasn't it? Especially at launch? I mean, other than the red ring of death problem? That's where we're at. So I'm pretty much wrapping up this show, but oh crap, I forgot to mention this. Okay, let's get back to Happy Town right now, because apparently there's a game coming out called Kunio-kun the World, and it will have local and online multiplayer, and there is no announcement of this is going to be the weirdest thing. There is no announcement of a US release, but it is announced for PS4, Switch, Xbox One, and Steam. Why would you do an Xbox One and Steam release if you weren't releasing it in America? So what is Kunio-kun the World? Well, it's a collection of all the old Famicom Kunio games, and it has the 11 Famicom games that came out, and the 4 US versions as well. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what Kunio is, that is River City Ransom and Super Dodgeball. And Crash and the Boys Street Challenge. Yeah, that series. In Japan, in America, we only got a few entries in that series, and they changed them around a little bit, and they weren't really cohesive. In Japan, the Kunio series it's a series, and there, as I said, there were 11 games released on the Famicom, on the Japanese NES. 11 of them. We got 4, they got 11, and some of them are freaking amazing, because it became this crazy arcade sports series where you punch and kick people. And I know there's Kunio Hockey and there's Kunio Soccer, but the one that really matters is Ganbare Dunk Heroes, Kunio Basketball. I have played that game. It is one of the most amazing basketball games you will ever play, because it's built on the River City Ransom engine like all these other games are. So you're playing basketball, but you're also running up to people and punching and kicking them in the face, and then picking up rocks and throwing them at their head in order to steal the ball. Maybe pick up a chair and throw that at them. And for some reason, you have 3 different baskets stacked on top of one another, so you can get a triple dunk by dunking it through all 3 baskets. But if you hang off the rim of a basket, you can break a hoop. You can break the basketball hoop off of the backboard and then start beating people with the basketball hoop. But you need to look out, because your opponents include all sorts of crazy people, including NASA scientists that can teleport. Yeah, it's kind of one of the best sports games ever made, and it was only released in Japan, but it will be included in Kunio-kun the World with both local and online multiplayer for 4 players. 2-on-2 basketball game. Okay. But that raises the question, are they going to release these in America? Are they going to translate them? And I think maybe they'll translate the menus and just leave the games in Japanese, which is unfortunate, but dude, I'll take what I can get. 11 Kunio Famicom games with online play? I mean, unless they completely botch the netcode, that's amazing. And even if they do botch the netcode, that's a lot of games I need on my Switch real bad. Could you imagine playing that on Switch? That is perfect for the Switch. Yes, 1,000,000 times yes. Whew. The last thing I wanted to say, I should probably mention that all the rumors that the PS5 was coming super soon seem to be exaggerated, but they could still pull something goofy at E3. We'll find out when E3 comes around. But the last thing I wanted to mention that I was going to go on for a little while about, but I'm running out of time, was that new God of War. As I mentioned, it is an incredible game. I have not played it personally, but I've watched people play it, and the visuals are amazing. The game is incredibly lengthy, and there is this certain charm to watching this former unhinged murderous psychopath mellow out and try to be a good dad to his son. But at the same time, it's so not God of War, because God of War is a crazy, violent hack-and-slash game, and this kind of isn't. It's more of an open-world action RPG. And what's more, I do think that it is getting a weird mix of overrated and not overrated. Because it's a very, very good game that likely deserves the review scores, but the problem is in all the people who are like, oh, this is the most creative and original thing ever, and it has such a message, and it's, it's so amazing. And it's just a dad game, which is a genre now. Games like The Last of Us and BioShock Infinite, there have been a number of games where you play a dad and you're protecting a child type-ish character who is usually invincible, because if they weren't, it would be terrible. And so it's not really anything that new. Ironically, the newest thing about it is the fact that it's a boy, because most of the time it's a little girl that you're, taking care of while you're going through the wasteland. But I do think that I am annoyed at the fact that it feels sometimes like it's trying too hard to be adult. Serious and mature. And rather than embracing the insanity of its past. But at the same time, man, that is such a nice game. And there is such an overwhelming charm to it. But I do think that the people complaining definitely need to give it a chance, because once they do, a lot of them are changing their mind, because apparently it controls better and has better combat than a lot of people were expecting it to, because Last of Us kind of controlled like crap. But at the same time, I think their complaints are also quite valid. But there is one thing that really needs to be said. Because a lot of people are like, this game proves that single-player gaming isn't dead, that single-player games can be successful. Well, no kidding! I've said this before, but I think it needs to be underlined. A bunch of big, stupid, emphasis on stupid AAA companies have been saying that there is no future in single-player games, everything has to go multiplayer. And you know who says garbage like that? Greedy scam artists. Not people actually, making games and looking at the people who enjoy them. People who want to milk you dry with loot boxes and microtransactions, which are so much easier to do when it's a multiplayer game. Oh, we just released a new map. Well, I guess I better buy the new map. Oh, we just released a new gun. Guess I better buy the new gun. They want to get you glued to their game for as long as possible so they can squeeze money out of you over an extended period of time to buy DLC. And because of that, they want to make you believe that single-player gaming is done, that there's no place for it, except there are a lot of gamers who are really not very social and don't like playing multiplayer games. There are a lot of gamers who swear by single-player gaming, that like to have a nice, relaxing, don't have to deal with other people, immerse myself in a fantasy world type of game. These people are very plentiful. They make up a huge portion of the gaming market. So if you honestly think all gaming can go multiplayer only, you're an idiot. And the only people who think that are greedy, scammy, AAA companies who don't really know what's up. And it's kind of sad, because now there's companies like Bethesda who are actually making a point of making ads about long-lived single-player games. Because people like single-player games. Of course, this could turn around because, hey, guess what? The Netherlands have just declared loot boxes to officially be gambling. Yeah, that's right. That's gonna cause some problems. Having said that, the backlash against the loot box menace has been so strong that a lot of companies are backpedaling. A lot of loot boxes are getting removed, and companies are apologizing, and they're realizing this was a terrible idea, and everyone is angry at them. Just like with online passes all those years ago. I told you we could beat it. And I know there's people... I don't like getting the government involved in loot box legislation, in any sort of video game legislation. It can get it can get a little sticky. Don't like that. But I do like that we have complained loud enough and hard enough and given such negative PR to loot boxes that they are effectively done. Good. Because, honestly, there's no real good defense for loot boxes. The people who try to play devil's advocate are just grasping at straws, and I feel bad for them. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me on GameBabble Live. Tune in next week from noon to 3 p.m. for more GameBabble Live with me and probably spontaneous sidekick Sully, who kind of came out of nowhere. I guess we're franchising. I don't know. But anyway, here is No Better by Major Lazer featuring Travis Scott and Cammy here on 89.5 FM KCFV The Wave. Diverse music for your diverse mind. Thank you so much for listening.